Hi there. Welcome to Numbers Don't Lie, the sales and marketing truth for accountants. I'm Brad Pinzer.
And I'm Janelle Sikora, and we're so excited to be here. It is a lovely Friday afternoon in sunny Florida. And Brad, I usually ask you what numbers we're talking about today, but given that it is a Friday afternoon, I'm pretty sure I know what number you picked. And I'm just going to go out on a limb here and guess that it's 18 because there are 18 holes on a golf course. And my guess is that's where you're heading after this podcast episode today.
So true, so true. I do love golf, and that is, an important number to me. Actually, I am not playing this afternoon because I do have some stuff to take care of. However, I am playing tomorrow morning, my regular Saturday game.
Very good.
Play, yep, and beat the heat because it's still pretty hot. It's August now, and seems like it stays hot forever. We have less and less good weather, but I'm playing super early, so I'm
Well,
excited.
I have a love-hate relationship with golf. I love the idea of it.
Mhm.
I hate how I perform and play. I'm terrible. And for the first 9 or 10 years of my career, I was thrown into it because that was when it was, you close the deal on the golf course, right? And I
Mhm.
was in very large corporate America. And, here I am, this young 20 something girl golfing with men twice my age and who were phenomenal golfers like you are, and all I just wanted to do is basically drive the beer cart around.
Yeah,
that's
well,
that's
that's
what I
that's
like.
fun. That's fun too. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I think we determined you're pretty good at that, huh?
Yeah. Yep,
Yeah.
that I can do well. So to tie that in with the podcast as well, there's a lot of selling that gets done on the golf course, and we're going to talk about sales today. So one thing that I know accountants love more than anything is to talk sales because they live, sleep, eat, and breathe it, right? Wrong.
Yeah.
They don't it's a bad word. It's a bad five-letter word. So, but here's the thing. It used to be many moons ago that when you graduated, you could hang out your own shingle, or you could leave one of the big four, or leave a firm and go start your own business. And you didn't have to worry much about where to find it because it just floods through the doors locally, right? People need accountants to do their books or do their taxes. But, things have changed so much and they've accelerated since the pandemic where so many people have started small businesses. And we know that what is the statistic that 1 in 5 won't make it past 5 years?
Hmm.
So accountants speak the language of business. And if you don't prioritize working year round at some level with your accountant, you're going to have terrible surprises at tax time. You're going to hate tax time more than accountants do. And as a business owner, you probably not going to make decisions that help you financially at all. So, um, we're going to talk a little bit today about how accountants can approach that sales conversation with business owners because they have to, because they're not just selling compliance work anymore. They're selling advisory work. And advisory work isn't the same in every firm. It's more about understanding what the needs are of your small business client, right?
Right. Absolutely. And it's also, it's about the client, right? It's about
Exactly.
them and not about you. And so it's really important that, you know, that sales uh talk is positioned that way.
Hmm. Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to put a plug in here for one of my favorite books, and I know it's yours too, is Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And I highly recommend that every accountant who's not read it, read it. It's a quick read, it's a brilliant read, and it is literally something that every firm owner should internalize before they have a sales conversation. So it's really funny because a number of years ago, I have a brother who's an engineer, and he's an executive for a very large company. And he had asked me if I had read Building a Story Brand, and I had not. So I I went and I purchased it and I bought it and I thought, oh my gosh, this is the most brilliant piece of literature I've ever read. And what it really caused me to do is be very introspective. And most of my career has been in sales. And after reading that book, I'm like, well, this is why what I do works, because this is the exact methodology I just naturally have been doing for this many years. And that's what I really want to focus on in this conversation is helping accountants understand that when you have a conversation about your services and when you're trying to earn a new client, you don't want to do what would seem intuitive, which is, well, I've been doing this for 15 years and, it's all about me, and I'm an expert in this and I know how to do that. That is not at all what clients want to hear. The story that you tell about your services really needs to be about that ideal prospective client. It needs to be more focused on them and their
You
language, right?
know, yeah, you're so true. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Storybrand. It's such a simple framework, and it makes so much sense. And it's funny, like what you said. You know, you go to an about me page, and you think it's supposed to be about me, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, how do you write an about me page? It's not about me.
Yep.
And there are ways to do it to talk about you know to put your customer first and to put them, you know, per story brand, the hero of the story. But at the same time that you're doing that, you're also, providing all the information about what you do and how you help them and all that kind of stuff. It's just a subtle, different way of doing it. And it's all this stuff is one of my favorite words that I've been using is that counterintuitiveness, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that goes on here,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very powerful.
It is. And where it really starts is I think that you have to take the time to do the deep dive behind who your perfect ideal client is, right? Put together that profile, understand not only who they are, from a demographic standpoint or narrow down your niche, but really understand, what is it that weighs on them? What is it that keeps them up at night? What is it that they struggle with as it relates to your services? What's their very biggest fear? What do they fear most? And, I would venture to say that when it comes to being a business owner, most business owners probably fear, bankruptcy or going out of business or their reputation or not being able to support their families. And honestly, that fear is best assuaged with an accountant, right? It's crazy. Accountants have the best story in the world to tell business owners. They just have to know how to tell it.
Absolutely.
And they have to start by really understanding what those fears and what those pain points and what those problems are of their ideal client. And then they have to be able to show that, hey, I get it. I understand. I've been there, or I work with people like you. I completely understand where you're at because of A, B, and C, being able to kind of tell that story.
Right. I've seen this before. I've helped this person, this company. These are some of the things we did, and this is where they were, and this is where they're at now. And I've done it before, and I can do it for you.
Right. And helping people feel comfortable, like, listen, you're not the first person that's come to me with books that are a mess. You're not the first person who didn't file their tax return yet this year. I think being able to disarm people is a huge part of the sales conversation when it comes to the accountant and the business owner. I know, as an example, my daughter is a business owner, and her stress level around tax time is through the roof. I would put that up against a stressed out accountant any day of the week. Um, Her stress level when her accountant calls her is through the roof because she always thinks it's going to be something scary, right? Um, and it shouldn't be that way. And I think a lot of it comes down to that sales conversation between the accountant and the business owner, and just letting them know, I've got your back. I understand where you are. You are not the first person that has had a problem like this that I've solved. I eat problems for breakfast, or, whatever you want to say, because you're professional problem solvers. But it's all about making sure that you speak in that sales conversation through the prospect's eyes and speak in terms they understand. Take all the tech talk out. If you say 1099, chances are your business owner prospect may or may not know what that is. So be sure to go that extra mile and be very, as you said in an earlier podcast, explicit about what you're talking about.
So, Janelle, so then what would you say? Like, let's just say, I'm going through my sales process. I'm an accountant, and you know, I'm I'm struggling, or I know that there's room for improvement, where would I start? Would it be that
Mhm.
like working on the messaging,
Yeah.
just the fundamentals of the
Yeah.
messaging, which can be used across the board, right?
Yeah, I think that is the absolute most logical place to start. And I think it's starting with like the messaging for your whole entire brand, right? So having like a messaging strategy or playbook or whatever that is a narrative, a brand, like a narrative for your brand that can be used in sales collateral. Like if you have a visual that you present during a sales presentation, your website copy, your um, marketing collateral, video scripts, social media, all of that. But it really does start with having a good message. And then inside that message, it also involves understanding what your short little elevator pitch is. We work with accountants that are in networking groups, and a lot of networking groups will allow you to stand up and give like a 1 minute pitch on this is what I do. And instead of saying this is what I do, it's flipping that script and being able to articulate in 60 minutes or less what your brand story is in, 2 sentences max, 2 sentences, and being able to start with what the prospective client's pain points are and how you resolve those, and then what the results are in working with you. So it's like that formula: problem, solution, results.
Yeah, and you know what I love the most about like when we go through this process with the clients, it's just like the wheels start turning, they start
Mhm.
turning, and you start thinking about your business in a different way, and like it all kind of like makes sense, and then it just kind of goes on to this, really, um, productive path
Mhm.
towards clarity,
Yeah, yeah.
with it.
And why clarity is so important too is because once you have confidence and clarity around what you're saying and how you're presenting your services to the client, then you can do the most important thing in the entire sales process, which is ask the right questions. And this is one thing that accountants overlook all the time. It's so easy to want to just show up and throw up, and you get a prospect in front of you, and you think, well, they want to know all about me, so I'm going to tell them about me. What's more important is you should be focused on asking the right questions and asking those second level questions. And if you are really confident in your brand message, you're going to know where to interject certain things that are parts of that brand message and when to stop and ask deeper questions. Because once you're able to get an answer to a question that you asked, you can respond to it with your brand messaging.
Yeah, and you really hit a good point there, because it's like, the first step is to get that clarity, but what that does is it gives you that confidence, right? And
Mhm.
so once you have that confidence, you can step into, any situation, whether it's, a sales call, or you're just out and about, at a cocktail party, and you meet somebody and they ask you what you do, and you tell them, and you have like really good, concise answers
Mhm.
to that, instead of such like boring, like, oh, I'm a CPA, like
Yeah,
that doesn't,
exactly. Yeah.
so that kind of stuff is super important. And then obviously the more confidence you have in all that stuff on how you communicate what it is that you do and how you help your customers, that just ends up where you're able to raise your prices, and
Mhm.
and start working with the
Yep.
your ideal clients who you really want to work with, who you enjoy working with.
Mhm.
Helps you to say no to the ones you don't want to work with. It all is very, very connected, and builds on top of each other. And that's why we always talk about messaging and how important it is, because it really brings everything together.
It does. And then because we're talking about sales conversations, I want to go back, and the sales presentation. I want to go back to something we talked about just a minute ago, which is being curious and asking the right questions. I can't underscore enough how important that is. And I'll give you an example. So, as you know, on our website, we've got a booking link where someone can book, a no obligation, no pressure strategy session with me. And I love, love, love those. They're so fun. This is like my, it's like kid in the candy store time. So we'll hop on the phone, and a while back, I had someone book a call. I didn't know them, obviously. And we get on and I'm like, well, how can I be helpful to you today? And the answer was, well, not really sure. But I heard you on a webinar and I just wanted to learn more about your services. So if I were, if I were not a very smart, savvy salesperson, I would have been like, oh, okay, well, this is what I do. This is how long I've done it, blah, blah, blah. But, and there are many cases where a business owner is not going to know what to ask when they go to talk to an accountant, talk to a bookkeeper, CPA, or business advisor, whatever. And so they're going to say, well, I'm just not sure what to ask. Just tell me about what you do. Don't do that. Always stop and say, okay, great. I can do that. But before I do, I'm really curious. I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. I'd like to understand, where you are. So if I'm an accountant and Brad, you're a business owner and you came into me and you're like, oh yeah, so-and-so referred me to you, but, or I found you on, found your website online, however they got there, doesn't matter. If they're like, I don't know, I own a business and, I not super happy with my accountant, not super unhappy, just thought I'd find out a little bit more about what you do. The worst thing that you can do is then just start talking about yourself. The best thing that you can do is start asking them about themselves. Find out, well, okay, great. Awesome. We're going to talk about that first. What kind of business do you run? What are you doing? Well, I own a hot dog stand, or I don't know, I own a bike shop or an architect firm, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Awesome. How long have you been in business? Build that rapport with them by asking questions. Be very naturally curious. Ask them questions. And then be sure and ask things like, okay, perfect. So now that we have established what kind of a business you have, tell me this. In the next 12 months, what are your goals? What are your two goals? So establish that what. And then find out, okay, great. So you told me your goals are this and this. What's holding you back? And that will pull out where their pain points really lie, and be sure to not stop there. Continue to ask those digging questions, those second, third level questions. And then you can ask things like, um, okay, awesome. Tell me about your priorities. How, how important is it that these things get done in the next 12 months? So you're really kind of starting to establish a sense of urgency there. Once you're able to extract all of this data from your prospective client, then you can turn around and message your response correctly and more impactfully to them. But asking questions, it's an art. It has to be practiced, but it's so important. Otherwise, you're basically throwing jello at a wall and hoping something resonates and sticks. And statistically, it probably won't.
That's great advice. I think the hard part is for some. I know for myself personally, like on the spot, being able to ask those right questions and knowing what to ask. I think some people are better at it than others.
Hmm.
But I think when you dial in your messaging and you understand, you know, your ideal clients, like all that stuff just kind of improves,
Yeah,
and you get better and better at it.
exactly. Yeah, it's an art, really.
Mhm.
You've kind of got to combine your messaging around your firm and your brand and your company. You've got to be very confident and clear in that. And then you also have to really be conscious of asking 4 or 5 questions every single time, and don't stop until you get answers to all of them. It's also really easy when you hear an answer to question number one that makes this bell go off in your head like ding ding ding, this is a perfect person, they're perfect for me. You want to just stop and then just throw up everything, all this word salad all over them about how perfect this is. But you really can't do that. You can be far more impactful, and uncover more if you just ask, the main 4 or 5 questions, and then you can turn the tables more on yourself and start talking about how your services resolve, however they answered those questions. So it's definitely a practice art, but I always tell people, if you're not used to asking questions and if you're not good at it or confident at it, create a template of 4 or 5 questions that you print out and have in front of yourself every single time you meet with a client. Pretty soon those just they get tattooed on your brain and you won't need that anymore. But that's very, very important. So once you've gone through the exercise of building the messaging, internalizing it, training your team on the messaging too, that's another really important piece that we don't want to miss, so that everyone's confident in saying the same thing, delivering the same message. Then you want to learn how to ask the questions that's going to extract the information that then in turn allows you to have the conversation with that message.
Yeah, and then also like when you have kind of that process in place and you're repeating it, then you're able to recognize patterns and kind of
Yes.
see, where somebody, is the good fit and somebody is not the good fit for you,
Hmm.
and earlier on in the process
Yeah, I
to save
100% agree with that.
to save you time,
Yeah,
you
100%
know.
agree. So the takeaway from this is your message is important. Your message is not the message all about you. Everyone can talk about themselves all day long. However, I challenge every listener here to stop, forget about what you do and focus more on your customer and putting them at the center of your story. And once you've got your message really well thought out, built out, you need to train your team on that. Make sure everybody knows how to give the right elevator pitch and talk about your firm and your products and empathize with the client. And um, then the next step is really understanding how to ask the right questions and what questions to ask. So I think with that, we can pretty much wrap up for today. Any fun facts that you want to add? Fun random facts, Brad?
A fun rant. See, you're putting me on the
I
spot.
know,
I'm
that's fun.
terrible, terrible at that. Um, I mean, the only thing I can think about, and it has nothing to do with this, is that I have my daughter is going to start her junior year in college,
Oh my God.
and
I knew that is exactly why I asked that question, because I was hoping that you were going to answer that way. Our brains think alike. It's the craziest things.
it is kind of crazy. We do that a lot, and we're driving up to. She's at Florida State.
Junior, right?
She's a junior studying hospitality, so
Maya.
she's in a sorority, so she's gonna be living in the sorority house this year for the first time, and she's like super super excited. Like that's like her thing,
That's
being
awesome.
around everybody. She's very social, so uh,
Good for her.
driving up there to move her into the sorority house will be the first time since college that I've been in a sorority house. I'll tell you that. So that should be fun.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah,
Well, that's exciting. Very fun. I like to have some fun random fact at the end of every podcast episode. So, all right.
very
Until
good.
next time, everyone. Numbers don't lie, as we know, and we look forward to being back on the air with you soon.
Absolutely. Take care.